I hear you like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah, that was a hot squash, but it was. Look at that, right into the Kali Basami.
Straight on the leg attack.
Wow. And he gets it.
But you've noticed there are some downsides. You get this idea. Let me train Judo because it's so cool. And it has all the things that Brazilian Jiu Jitsu doesn't have. But there are some downsides. Let's talk about some tips for cross-training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Judo. First, a little background on my experience with both martial arts. I started training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in 2017, and 3 months later, I started training Judo at the same time. So from the beginning, I had been cross-training. I've had the opportunity to train and coach in both martial arts over the years, and I'm still actively competing in and coaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I do incorporate a lot of Judo into my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappling because it's my base and I love it. The first tip for integrating the martial arts together is when you're at the class, don't think about integrating the martial art. Don't think about how you can use this in your Jiu-Jitsu class. I actually would advise being fully present in the class and trying to learn the move the way the instructor is showing for its own sake. So in Judo, the way you win is by getting an ippon, a perfect throw where you take both of their feet off the mat, you flip them up and skadoosh, slam them down. Very cool, but in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's the start of the match. So if you're thinking about getting an ippon in Judo and not worrying about a submission, I actually think that's okay. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, you shouldn't be worrying about the big slams necessarily because they don't win you the match. You should be worried about how it can set up your submission attempts. That is not to say that you shouldn't try to integrate the two sports together because they have such an amazing chemistry when you have a decent understanding of both. The best time to do this is going to be during randori, as they call it in Judo class, or in free sparring in Jiu-Jitsu class. One of the frustrating things about learning a sport such as Jiu-Jitsu or Judo is that you're in the same class and everybody's learning the same moves all together. So then when it comes time to test these moves against full resistance, well, everybody just learned the same moves, so you sort of all know that that's what you're going for. But if on one day you have Judo class and you learn a specific sequence and the next day you have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, it's a whole different group of people. So during the sparring or the open mat, it's going to be an excellent opportunity to try to hit your moves from the other sport. If you want to progress as fast as possible, I would advise picking a primary art to study. For me, it started off as Jiu-Jitsu. I would train that most of the days of the week, and then on the weekends, I would train 2 days of Judo. Then it switched where I trained mostly Judo, but there was a huge background where I was training a lot of Judo, so for me, the two arts have sort of combined into one. Obviously, there are different competition rules, but for the most part, Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, you can have a very similar game between the two arts, and that's something that's super valuable when it comes to cross-training, and one of the reasons why I recommend it so much. If you want to talk about specific techniques that will cross between Jiu-Jitsu and Judo very well, a lot of the best options for doing moves like that are going to be throws that lead right into arm bars. Any sort of a hip toss into an armbar is sort of a classic Judo move, but works awesome in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you get a tap right away with a pretty, classic move. Other moves that go in reverse from Jiu-Jitsu to Judo, any choke from the back, especially from turtle, if you're able to sink in a choke, that's going to be super effective in Judo. There was this one time in a Judo tournament where I made it my goal to get a submission victory. So what I did was an arm drag to the back take to a rear naked choke, and that was how I ended up finishing that match. Clearly that was something that I learned in my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, and I was able to apply it in competition in Judo. Likewise, During Brazilian Jiu Jitsu competitions, there have been numerous throws that I've utilized to just get 2 takedown points and to put the opponent in a position where the wind is knocked out of them, they're feeling tired, a little bit demoralized.
Very dedicated student. He's in pretty much every day. Like we just saw, he has a judo background.
If you get launched onto the mat and the wind gets knocked out of you, it's going to set the pace for the match a little bit, and you might be a little bit more likely to give up and lose. One of the best techniques that I perfected in judo that has universally saved me has been the break fall. I use it all the time in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class because with a good break fall, it really limits the amount of impact on your head and the other parts of your bodies that are soft. So every single time we're doing takedowns or sweeps or any situation where I could be taking some impact, I'm making sure to relax and smack the mat like I really mean it, and that takes a lot of the pressure and the impact off. My last tip for cross-training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo is going to be to find an instructor that has trained in both and then is going to be able to help you integrate that. There are a lot of instructors who have done both, and when you're able to see it from that side, you're able to get their perspective on how to set up throws into submissions and how to use them together. But if you can't find a coach who is doing both, that's totally okay, because learning each art on its own and being present and trying to get the most you can out of each class, then during your free sparring sessions trying to work the moves on the people who maybe haven't seen them before, you're going to be able to get a lot more positive repetitions against people who are trying as hard as they can to stop you. And in the end, that's going to help you get much better, much faster. And overall, you can become the person who is able to make your own game. You don't have to have someone tell you how to integrate it. It's not that difficult to combine them. They're very similar. The objective might be a little bit different, but especially in the gi, you can use all of your judo grips, basically all of the judo throws, and just end up in a controlling position, then you're going to win. My favorite move that I've ever learned from judo that I use all the time in jiu-jitsu is Kesa Gatame. When I first started, I used to roll with this guy. I'm not going to say his name, but he was really tall compared to me and really muscular compared to me. I was 17, but I was very feisty, and one of the things he would do to wear me out is he would pin me down in Kesa Gatame and really just crush the life out of me. And I got super tough because of it. And also, I learned how to do that to other people. So even people who weigh much less than me, if I get the right grips, even in no gi, I'm able to drop my weight into the floating rib. So many people will just pressure tap. And you can't tell me a pressure tap isn't real, because there are instances where you physically are having your organs compacted so much that you can't inhale. Pressure taps are real, and Kesa Gatame is a great way to get pressure tapped. Those are my tips for how to cross-train Judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you like the video, support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing. Support your stomach by drinking some kombucha. No sponsors because the channel is too small, so more likes, comments, subscribes would go a long way. I appreciate y'all. Peace.